So as liquidity gets pushed into the markets every 4 years when the governments go and roll their debts, this is driven by everything I call the everything codes and work that I did showing that every 4 years governments need to refinance their debts. And what they do is inject massive liquidity to be able to do it and try and get interest rates lower. So as we do that, it creates a perfect 4-year cycle. And it's not going to go away until we get rid of the debt equations and everything else. So where are we in the 4-year cycle? I break them down by seasons, each year being a different season. Okay, winter being when liquidity is being taken away, 2022. 2023, spring. Okay, markets stop going down. People don't quite believe it yet, but you see green shoots coming, but it still feels a bit wintry and cold and miserable. Then summer, which is what we're finishing now. Macro summer is year 3, same year as the election cycles. And then we go into macro fall or autumn, crypto. You know,
When if we were trying to time
beginning
it.
of the year. So it's just an annual cycle.
When do you say?
It's the beginning of the year we go into the next autumn,
Okay.
the fall or the autumn cycle. That's usually the most explosive.
Beginning of next year.
Yeah, and that's usually the most explosive. So summer starts to rip, and then we hit what I've called the banana zone, which is when everything goes banana.
And how long will the banana zone last for?
That depends on global liquidity. Normally it lasts until about November because of this cycle. It lasts until November, and we have different structures of these cycles. We had the last one, which it usually has a peak around tax season. So March, people have to sell some tokens to pay taxes. It falls for a bit and then it rips at the end of the year. Last time it fell 50% over that period in 2021. And then it ripped, but it didn't really extend and everyone kind of got caught out by it was double top. 2017 and 13, well, they were different. They had the same cycle structure. It went to the summer, 2017, Bitcoin 10x'd from there in 4 months.
It's the same.
And that's the blow-off cycle. So we don't know what we're going to get, a stunted cycle or a blow-off cycle, but thinking about the political change and what's been going on, the probability has to be towards a blowout cycle. So that will be much higher price than everyone expects. Most people have PTSD from the last cycle. And they don't want to overextend themselves and they're worried that they're going to be caught holding the bag, which usually means they'll sell early because the markets give as much pain to the most number of people as possible. Why in 2021, everyone's expecting 2017 to happen.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Maximum pain. So that's where we are.
So would you say that the whole narrative of a super cycle is, should not be revisited as a possibility?
I don't see how that happens unless they break this everything code cycle of liquidity. So let's play this through. Let's say we're towards the end of 2025. The US economy and the global economy's picked up. What happens is inflation usually picks up a bit and the central banks start raising rates or tightening liquidity in some form. And that slows down 2026. Doesn't mean we get a recession, but we get a slowdown. So unless we change that dynamic, there's no reason to believe the 4-year cycle won't keep repeating. It'll stop being repeated once we break the root cause of the problem, which is demographics.
That's it. So that's for the 4-year cycle repeating, but it will continue being a 4-year cycle. It won't have a super cycle. Remember in the last cycle, we thought we'll continue extending for another.
I doubt it, unless something completely changes.
Fundamental changes.
Fundamental changes.
Okay. And then we start going through, first I want to compare the cycles. How would you compare, is any specific differences we're seeing in this cycle compared to the last cycle? There's always small variations of which asset classes lead the cycle, but anything else is fundamentally different this time around?
No, we've got some new asset classes come in, but otherwise it's pretty much the same. So Bitcoin usually leads in spring and summer.
Which is now.
And then Bitcoin dominance falls and Altseason starts.
In a couple of months.
Which is...
When you say Altseason, is that utility tokens, meme coins, or both?
It's probably everything.
Everything, okay.
It almost doesn't matter, including all the dead tokens. My guess is even stupid shit like Luna will go up, 5x. Why? Because it's now a meme about the broken cycle last time. Who knows what goes up? It gets crazy season, is the point. So that Bitcoin dominance part of the cycle, that starts dropping from here, and then we start having the Altseason. But nothing structurally looks different. In fact, it's very similar. When you map the charts, very similar to the 2016-17 cycle, and not dissimilar to the last one.
So one thing, I'm a very simplistic person when it comes to the markets, predicting the markets. Far from an expert. All I say, my only thesis, which Scott likes, Scott Melker, mutual friend we have, he likes my thesis. I'm like, I'm very simple. I think unless there's something fundamental is different, history will continue repeating itself time and time again. But that means everyone's expecting the cycle to end in November. So I think when everyone expecting it to end in November,
they've all got PTSD, all of them. You go on X and ask people where do they think Bitcoin peaks out. My guess is most answers are 150,000. Well, it's 93,000 as we're speaking. And that's not very, and most people are worried that it's going to peak early. So the PTSD, the collective trauma, is it's not going to go as high as you expect. I need to sell early to take some chips off the table.
Yeah.
And that's when normally you get a correction, everyone says, thank God for that. And then it rips and everybody's caught. So
I got it.
And I've seen that so many times. It's like, oh shit, I sold too soon.
But do you think when that cycle repeats itself, it drops significantly and then rebounds heavily and it rips? But that, we expect it to peak end of next year.
Yes.
With everyone
Where?
okay, and I'd expect it to end a bit earlier than previous cycles because everyone's expecting it to end at a certain month. Does they want to preempt it and end it before?
Not if they pre-sold because they.
Oh.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I got it.
Because then they keep ripping, and we've got new buyers now. We've got sovereigns, we've got giant family offices, we've got Middle East, we've got US government potentially, we've got...
Wait, do they even know about the 4-year cycle in your opinion?
Christ, I've talked a lot about it. Yes, I think a lot of them do. I think they realize it's a very cyclical asset. It's like tech stocks. It's very similar. They understand the volatility and they understand it's mainly 4 years. But there's a whole bunch of people who won't care about the pension plans because that's not their time horizon. Their time horizon is 10 years, 20 years. So they don't care about it. So most of those guys aren't really in yet, but they're likely to be buyers later in the cycle because they're not the fastest to pull a trigger. And so they might push the extended rally at the end of it as they come in.